Hello, everybody. Sad ain't bad. That's the theme of today. I'm changing things up today. I'm here at 9 EST, 9-ish EST, instead of noon EST. So I hope that for those of you who've been showing up for the noon ones are game for a little switcheroo. And even if you're not watching live, I am checking in on any comments and questions that come in on any of the videos, so feel free to leave them. I always like to start with a little bit of housekeeping. I invite you to share. If one of these videos resonates with you and you think it would resonate with someone else, feel free to share. You can share it now if you want. There's a little button down below. And just let people know that you're watching. Hello to those of you who've hopped on. Or you can share it in a private message if you know someone who needs to hear that message today, perhaps. And leave all of your... Oh, I just realized my microphone wasn't plugged in. Feel free to leave all of your comments and questions and likes and whatnot to the side. I love kind of following up with those things, whether you're watching live or it's later in the day. And finally, as always, if any of this stuff is really hitting you deeply and you want to explore what it could look like for you personally, my favorite way to connect with people is one-on-one. And with that in mind, I invite you to schedule a time to talk. I offer these free kind of quick discovery calls just to see if there's a fit and if there's something we could work on together to help move you forward on the projects that you may be feeling stuck on or overwhelmed by. So I'm sharing that link in the side and you can go ahead and follow up on that anytime. So today, what I wanted to talk about is a follow-up to yesterday's talk, which was around this thought and feelings model that I learned way early on in my coaching path, and what I practice on myself and in my training, and what I'm using all the time kind of in the background with all of my clients, with the main idea of that being but the main idea being that our feelings are an inside job, that the feelings or the emotions that we experience, so those sensations in our body that we then label with a word, are an inside job. They actually are a result of whatever thinking is happening in any moment. So if we're having angry feeling thoughts, we're going to feel and have emotions of anger. If we're having frustrated feeling thoughts, we're going to experience feelings of frustration. And I asked yesterday just for you to try and bring that into your life with some of the simpler, smaller little examples throughout your day. Now, sometimes we don't know what we're thinking. It's really hard to kind of pinpoint what the thoughts are. We just know that we're having a certain emotion. And that's what's really cool about emotions and feelings, is they are these beautiful red flags that kind of say to you, hey, there's some thinking going on in the background. You might not be aware of it. You may have no idea what it even is or where it's coming from, but you know it's happening because this powerful emotion is sitting there. Today, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about those feelings, about the feeling piece, because a couple of things come up when I start working on this with my clients and I start sharing this idea. The first is that when I talk about how it works, which is really just all I'm talking about, this idea that emotions are an inside job, they're not a result of external circumstances, is this defense comes up like, well, you're saying I shouldn't feel that. Like, I shouldn't feel this way. And I want to be really clear that that is not what I'm saying. That this is not about whether we should or should not, or challenging what you're feeling, or questioning it, or saying that some feelings are worse than others, or trying to change things. I very much love to spend time, not love to spend time, but it's very important to kind of, when we're feeling something, to validate it, to own it, to say, this is a feeling that I am experiencing in this moment. I am feeling frustrated. I am feeling angry. I am feeling grief. So understanding how it works is not the same as trying to change it. So what will happen is my clients will call me and we'll have our session, every week. And some weeks they're in these very emotional spaces. And my job is not to try and change that for them. It's not to try and say, oh, you're feeling bad, let's go ahead and try and make that better. Let's change your thinking so that you can feel better. It's more about saying, all right, so that feeling is happening, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with what you're experiencing. There's nothing wrong with what you're feeling. Let's just sit together and slow down and just experience it. And know that it's just all your emotion is telling you right now is about where your thinking is. That's it. It's not telling you about anything in your world. It's not telling you about your project or your life or your partnership. It's just telling you about what's happening with your thinking in the moment. The second piece to that, kind of like the sister idea to that, is that we have this idea that certain emotions are bad, that it's bad to be sad, or that it's bad to be angry, or that it's bad to feel frustrated, or it's bad to feel grief, or it's bad to feel stuck, and that it's good to feel happy, and it's good to feel joy, and it's good to feel, that there's good feelings and there's bad feelings. Oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Don't feel that way, right? We get these messages around us that certain emotions are negative and certain emotions are positive. And that too can kind of feed this urgency to move out of a feeling, to say, oh, I'm feeling this and I shouldn't be feeling it. I'm having this emotion. I'm so angry and I shouldn't feel angry. And what happens is we have an emotion, and then on top of it, we layer just all of these judgments about that emotion, about that feeling. And all of those judgments, right, which are just more thoughts and more stories about what it means to be experiencing a certain emotion, kind of piles on this overwhelm and this ickiness around having an emotional experience about something. So if you're willing to kind of take that judgment away, if you're willing to say, you know what, it's okay to feel sad right now, and I understand where it's coming from. Those two things can be incredibly liberating and incredibly empowering, and actually help us move through those emotional, I call them thought storms or feeling storms or whatever, move through them more quickly and more calmly than if we're constantly trying to fight it. So here's an example. I love metaphors, and I love using the ocean as a metaphor. And the way that I think about it is, if you imagine your emotions being like waves, and sometimes it's calm, and sometimes it's choppy, and sometimes it's overwhelming. And when emotions come on, when we're standing in this place of, I gotta fight it, I gotta change it, I have to get out of this feeling, I can't be feeling this way. It's like trying to swim through the waves, right? Trying to like knock them down, and there's a lot of agitation, and it actually ends up adding to our stress because we're trying to fight this emotional experience we're having. The alternative to that is, instead of trying to fight the waves, to actually relax into them, to extend on your back and just float and let yourself ride on the top of the waves. It doesn't stop the waves. It doesn't like keep them from coming, but it completely changes your experience of those choppy days or choppy weeks or choppy months or choppy years. And in that is a very powerful shift, I think. So I just want to, I'd love to know what you think. I'd love to know if this is hitting or landing in any way. You can leave those notes in the comments if you feel challenged by it, if you're like, yeah, but what about this? I love having conversation about this, because the conversation is where, fighting the waves doesn't stop them either, right? Totally. It totally doesn't. It doesn't stop them either. That's the thing. We can't stop the waves. And that's something that comes up again. I hear again is like, oh, how do I stop feeling this way? And I very much want to try and move you from that position of like, I have to stop this feeling, to, I'm feeling this. Let's slow down. Yeah, you're feeling it. And let's have a better understanding about where that feeling is coming from, so it doesn't feel like it's in control of you, that it's just something that's happening. And also, relaxing into it, again, it just changes your experience of having these emotional days. And I've been talking more and more with people, who are having hard days where it's like, yeah, it's a tough day. There's a lot of waves. And better than trying to like fight them off and push them away and layering guilt on for feeling something, let's just relax. and calm down and lay back and let the waves come, and it just shifts things. I don't know how else to put it. Thanks for that question, Alethea. Please share more as more is coming up. Yeah. So that's what I got for you today. I really wanted to dive in more of this feeling piece. And if more questions come in, I'm happy to spend more time on it. Tomorrow, meditation has helped me a lot with this, says Julie. Totally. I'd love to know more about what you mean. I mean, meditation's fascinating because I think the perception sometimes of meditation is that it's this practice of not thinking or not feeling. But I really see meditation as the practice of noticing feeling and noticing thinking. So it's almost like another image that I like to use is tornadoes, like thought tornadoes, these thought and feeling storms. It's the difference between being in the storm or being in the tornado and stepping out of it. And meditation is the practice of doing that. Of you get distracted, you get into a thought, you get into a feeling, and then you come out of it and say, oh, look, it's just a thought. It's just a feeling. Let me let it pass. And then you get sucked back in a couple seconds later, and it's that practice of kind of stepping in and out of it. Much like, with the wave metaphor of swimming in the waves versus just relaxing. And swimming in the waves and just relaxing. It doesn't change that the waves are there, it just changes your experience of it. Alethea mentioned there can be a strange kind of joy in being present to all your feelings, even the bad ones. Totally. And you and I have talked about this, and I know your work is all around this, around that shifting our attitude towards our emotional lives is incredibly empowering. And you combine that with this deeper understanding of where it's coming from and how it's working, and it just allows you to ride that wave, right? And deal with the weather that comes in much more calmly. It doesn't change the weather that comes in, but it just kind of mellows. It makes it less stressful, less panicky, if that makes sense. I'm loving the comments coming in. All right, cool. Yes, exactly. So helpful. Thanks, Julie. Thanks for the likes. I'm liking y'all up here over here too. I like that. Boom, boom. Thanks for those of you who showed up live. I know I changed up the time today, and I might be playing with it more in a couple days just because it's the weekend, got the kids coming, got the kids here, and trying to fit it in around all of our family schedules. I like the wave metaphor, always helpful to have a visual. Yeah, I have one of the topics that I have is all about metaphors because I find metaphors can change everything. Metaphors allow us to look at things in a way that's less emotional, a bit more analytical, which I always like, kind of peel the emotion off of it a little bit. And again, kind of take us out of our experience of something by looking at it in a different way. So I use waves a lot. I use the weather a lot. I use mountains a lot. I have a whole one coming up on like the cross section of the ocean. One of my clients, we use a fruit stand metaphor. I've used a bakery as a metaphor. Anyway, I'll save all that for another day. All right, cool. If anything else has come up, I'm here for another minute or two. If you have any other questions or comments, and if you're not here able to watch live, please leave your comments and questions on the right-hand side. I'm very visual, so having a picture drawn rather than words can help me get out of my head. Most definitely. I'm a big, big picture person, and just kind of shifting it, I find just helps immeasurably. All right, cool. I'll be back tomorrow. I think tomorrow I'm going to talk a little bit more about now the thought piece, and that is where things get super fun. Julie, thank you for being here. It's awesome that you show up live. Much appreciation if you have the chance to share it. I appreciate the comments and the likes. And again, if for anyone watching, you want to dive into this more directly on stuff that you're thinking about and want to explore, I have pinned the link where you can set up a free discovery call because I would love to talk to you one-on-one about anything that's coming up and possibly diving into some work together. So, all right, you guys have a fabulous day. If anything comes up and you want to come back and share comments, I'll be following up over there, and I will see you tomorrow. You rock.